Hi, it's Andrea Olson here with eastidahonews.com. I am joined by Dallin Durtschi. He is from Idaho Falls, born and raised here, but currently he is in New York for school. But Dallin, you just returned recently from the Ukraine area. Kind of tell me a little bit about that and why you were there.
Yeah, so as everyone is well aware, there is a Russian invasion of Ukraine occurring today. And because of this situation, there are millions of refugees fleeing their homes in Ukraine for safety, going west, mostly through Poland, some through Romania or Moldova. And I, like many people, watched the news and I felt really sick seeing such horrible things occur. And I felt like I had to do something about it. So I was looking for opportunities to go and assist there. And I went with an organization called World Central Kitchen. They're an organization that their primary goal is to provide food and necessities to people in either natural disasters, catastrophes, wars. And yeah, so I spent the last week and a half, I flew to Krakow, Poland, and then I took a train from there to a small city of about 60,000 people called Przemyśl. And that's the closest city to the main border crossing with Ukraine. And then from there, it's about 20 minutes driving towards the border where Ukraine and Poland meet.
So what specifically did you help out with while you were there?
Yeah, so my intentions were to go and help out in any way I could. I speak Russian and some familiarity with Ukrainian, so I can communicate with the people who are fleeing. And I arrived, and primarily our goal was to distribute between 10 and 15,000 meals a day, with around 30 to 50 volunteers only. So that's a lot of prep work needed, a lot of food that needs to be processed. And so in the mornings, I am not a chef, so I would chop vegetables and prepare food that then chefs would cook. And at that point, I would go and take the food to the border and distribute it to refugees as they crossed into Poland from Ukraine.
Wow. What was it like to actually physically be there and be involved in helping?
Yeah, I think that all of us, when we think of World War II or massive historical conflicts or wars, we have images of destruction or chaos or people fleeing on trains or all sorts of things. And to see those photographs in a history book is one thing, and then to see it happening and unfolding today is really heartbreaking, and also somewhat surreal. The atmosphere there is really intense and chaotic, and there's a great sense of urgency as you see people who have crossed over the border. Currently, men in conscription age are not allowed to leave Ukraine. So almost everyone who is leaving is either a woman with children or an elderly person. And that means that nearly everyone that crosses the border has just said goodbye to their husband, their father, their son. And so to see these people coming across, yet coming across with a lot of resolve and determination is quite inspiring, yet incredibly heartbreaking.
Now, I'm sure you interacted with so many different people there. Are there specific interactions you had that were so memorable that you would want to share?
Yeah, certainly. I think that several times I would speak to people, and I lived in Ukraine for 2 years doing an LDS church mission from 2016 to 2018. So I have experience living in the country. And oftentimes when people would come across, I'd speak to them and they would say what city they're from. And I remember this happened often, but one particular instance, I asked an elderly woman where she was coming from, and she said the city Chernihiv. And I said, that's a beautiful city with a river and it's so green. And she said, it was a beautiful city, but it no longer exists. And to hear that is just, it makes you stop and really think about that. I mean, to think of our own city, Idaho Falls or Rexburg or wherever we're from in Southeast Idaho, to imagine what we call home and what is our whole world, to imagine it just being totally destroyed and never um, being there. I mean, it's hard to really fathom that, but to hear people with these kinds of sentiments. Yet despite the real sadness and despair, this woman, for instance, she still carried some form of optimism that her life will continue and that she was persevering. That's why she left. She wasn't willing to just give up and just say, woe is me. And she has every right to, because I can't imagine what she's going through, but she continues on.
Wow, that's incredible. And now you just shared that you did an LDS, you served a mission there in Ukraine. That's really interesting. From seeing that time that you were there to now, I mean, is it kind of a surreal moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to see images on the news of apartment buildings and shopping malls and bridges blown up and destroyed and left in rubble and ruin, things that I have seen and that these people leaving, that was their everyday life. To see those things now on the front page of the New York Times in a pile of rubble, it's really surreal, and it's hard to comprehend how something so horrible could happen.
Was it difficult for you to get there to where you tried helping in the efforts? Because I know there's been a lot of, airplanes blocked to go to certain areas. Was it difficult for you to go there and volunteer?
Um, it was more straightforward than I would have imagined. Uh, I just got a ticket to fly to Krakow, the nearest city, to the border crossing that I was going to volunteer at. And then from there, I rode a train. And the train going towards the border was almost empty. On my entire train, I could only see 5 other individuals besides myself. So hundreds of empty seats. Yet on the way back from the city to Krakow to come back to New York, the train was entirely full of refugees. So in some way, there's a lot of traffic going west and not as much going east. But from there, I was able to locate the organization that I was volunteering for. And with some knowledge of Eastern European public transport and how things run there, I was able to figure that out. But yeah, it's certainly a chaotic atmosphere. For example, at the Krakow train station, the day I got there, almost every single train was delayed by 5 or 6 hours. There were massive lines of people waiting for information. Everyone was confused. There were lots of refugees there. And it was extremely chaotic. So I think that people do have a hard time getting around right now.
Were you ever worried while you were there? Did you ever feel a sense of worry?
Worried for these people and what they're going to face. And even though many of them now have relative safety, they've escaped the war zone. They enter a whole new unknown where they don't know where they're going to sleep. They don't know where they're going to get a job. They don't know how they're going to provide for their children. And that fills me with a lot of anxiety, because now there are millions of people that have an incredibly uncertain future. I never felt unsafe while I was there personally, though. And partially that's because I'm a 24-year-old male. So I have some privilege in being able to feel safe like that. But I was lucky to not have to confront anything that felt dangerous.
So I know you're probably very glad that you were able to have this opportunity and help in some way. Are you hoping to help in another way after you got home? Are you thinking of other efforts? What's kind of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that all of us who follow what's going on feel a sense of duty to contribute or do something to help, but it's difficult to understand what the best way to do that is. For some people, it may be finding an organization to donate money to others, it may be simply keeping informed and having conversation about what's happening. I think that's really critical to not forget. For myself personally, I'm a graduate student at university and I don't have money, so I can't really donate, but I do have the flexibility because I'm a student and I'm young, and I have a knowledge of the language, that I could go there and spend time. Going forward, I think that the most important thing that I can do is to continue to talk about what's going on with other people, make sure that everyone is aware and that the people of Ukraine are not forgotten. Additionally, I'm in the process of drafting my thesis for my graduate degree, and I'm writing my thesis about art being produced in Ukraine and shared on social media, and how it's used to increase morale and keep people inspired in Ukraine. So I think that there's a lot of things that we can do. For me personally, that's how I'll contribute, but everyone can find their own way. And even if it's small, and even if it is only just keeping informed, that's something.
Excellent. Well, Dallin, thank you so much for joining with me today. I really appreciate it, and sharing your experiences of how it was like in the border of Ukraine and Poland. It's a very interesting aspect. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess I'll just say one last thing. When we're in Southeast Idaho, it can feel like we're kind of far away from the world. But I think that what is important to remember is even us in Southeast Idaho can have a great impact with others, whether it's through our words that we share online, or whether it's through simple acts of kindness or service. Even the connection between the epicenter of the world in Ukraine and rural Idaho can have a connection, and we can make a difference.
Great. Thank you.